Fallout New Vegas is a game where you get to choose your playstyle and how you intend to tackle the wasteland. Many choose guns or melee, wanting to be up close and personal with opponents, or be safe and shoot them from afar. And then there's people like me, who like blowing people smooth apart. Explosive weapons are those with just a little more kick. A full middle finger to enemies and their families during their funerals. It's a prime way to make sure there's nothing left of an enemy. From simple grenades to the high-tech Fat Man, I once again beg you the question. Can you beat Fallout New Vegas with explosive weapons only? But Ace, I hear you say, through your Cheeto-covered lips, explosive weapons cause much more damage than guns or melee weapons. How is this hard? Where's the challenge in this video? I'm glad you asked. Certain explosive weapons, like the grenade launcher and throwables, cause a lesser AoE damage. For those of you who don't know what AoE means, that means area of effect. However, the missile launcher and Fat Man cause massive amounts of damage, and they can't really be used indoors unless I want to blow myself to bits. There's also a weight requirement for weapons. So without further ado, we're shot in the head. I awoke and had an itching feeling that I've been here before. Lots of times before. I created myself and Mr. Boom was born. Gifted with good looks and a stunning intelligence, but above all, his one true love is explosives. And boy, does he get the job done. Time for what everyone cares about the most, my special and perks. Oh wow, yippee, look at the Vega tester go. Wowee, let's put a 5 in this, maybe a 7 in this, maybe a... Here's an image, special, and skills. Ta-da! It was then time to greet the wasteland, and I got my hands on my first explosive weapon. The Mercenary's grenade rifle, as well as some dynamite. But I was off to Prim. Why, you may ask? I don't know, man, I wanted to. Prim needed a sheriff as convicts roamed the street and the habitants hid indoors. The first convicts I met were obliterated in a shower of gore, and I knew right then, this was gonna be fun. It was then into the Bison Steve. These poor bastards didn't stand a chance. I used VATS to kill the first few and then set some traps before fighting the rest. The traps and plan worked perfectly, and I leveled up. I rescued Snoopy and learned that I could get a sheriff from the prison or had the NCR take over. I decided the ex-sheriff at the prison was the better choice, but I didn't have money to get in. F***ing communist. I decided that I'd go with the NCR for now. I obliterated the Vipers and continued on my way, ammo reserves already running low. I made it and was able to persuade Major Knight to send some more men. I then picked up a few fetch quests for later for easy experience. I then killed some bugs for Ranger Jackson and headed back to Prim. Prim got its protection, and I continued on my way. I headed back to Good Springs because I was out of ammo, and I chose to complete the tutorial and end it. But with no ammo, I didn't want to start the Ghost Town gunfight. So I made a choice. I headed to Vegas. So after running over the river and through the woods, I ended up at every YouTuber's favorite place, Vegas. I spoke to the Vendatron, and from here on out, I would have a steady supply of ammunition. Restocked with grenades, I decided to go to Nipton. On my way, I decimated some Vipers. I then met our good friend Oliver. Hi, Oliver. Bye, Oliver. I then once again met with the Wasteland Furry and was told to do what I've been doing. Spread hell and atrocities. I then spoke with Ranger Ghost and returned with medics for boxcars. From there on, I was off to Novak. On my way, I killed more Vipers, freed some prisoners, and arrived at Novak. I spoke with Manny and learned some ghouls were holed up in the nearby Repcon launch site. My job was to get rid of them. But first, I helped Boone get his revenge. Ghouls were my only main resistance as I approached the test site. They didn't stand much of a chance. Close quarters inside was another challenge though. But after crippling myself by inhaling lead, I made it to Jason Bright. It then became my mission to clear the demons from the basement. The demons turned out to be Davison, who was looking for some stealth boys. Their only issue? Harland. I told Harland I'd help him reunite with his friend, or what was left of them. But I didn't do that, because this is Fallout, and f*** your friend. Unfortunately for Davison, the stealth boys he'd been looking for were not here. He reluctantly listened to Antler and followed the new invoice, leaving the facility. With no more hindrance, the Bright clan occupied the basement, and I was sent on another quest. The Repcon quest is pretty simple. First, you gotta get the isotope for the rockets. Luckily, inside the rocket souvenirs, there's some isotope in there. 5 rockets does the trick. I then found the thrust modules at the junkyard, and it was finally time for the launch. The ghouls launched without a hitch, and Novak was now safe. I leveled up and took the Mad Bomber perk. I then went back to Manny and learned that some of the old members of his gang had gone off with Benny to Boulder City. I then decided to put the Mad Bomber perk to good use. I made 39 MC grenades and used them to end the lives of this Viper gang. I then made Boulder City, spoke to Lieutenant Buttnut, and found Jessup. Since they wouldn't surrender, I threw grenades until they both died. I then died to death. This time, I stuffed a grenade far into Jessup's hole, but I won't tell you which one. He died, and I headed towards my next objective. I decided that this time around, I was going to do some fun quests and some interactions that you might have even missed on your last playthrough. First, go to the Vicky and Vance Casino in Prim. Once you've done the main quest here, come back after a few days and you're confronted by the deserters of the NCR. All of them died in a fire as soon as they looked into my eyes. Another is located in the Aerotech Office Park. You're looking for Captain Parker. He believes there's a gambling and drug operation going on. You'll find Keith in Building 200. I got him to spill that he was selling hard chems. You then return to Parker and he'll give you the option to back him up. And you bet your ass I backed up Parker. Parker then blows his brains out. From here, I was onto the Sharecropper Farms to speak with Morgan Blake. Crops were dying and there's not enough water. So I went and looked at the pump station and I discovered that the pump station had been irradiated. On my way to find the source, I blew this golden gecko to smithereens. I then found that it was Vault 34 that was the cause of the radiation. Inside were tons of golden geckos, and it was nothing a well-placed grenade couldn't take care of. Then, the unthinkable happened. I ran out of bombs, and the ghoul dwellers now had free range to do whatever they wanted with me. So I used my 2 God-given legs and ran the f*** out of there. Without grenades, I was useless here, so I waited a bit on this quest. But then it hit me. I realized I was no longer having fun. So like you should do with any game that you love and start hating, I took a very, very long break. And after a few months, we've added some new stuff. So here's what's new. I added multiple mods that increase the amount of explosives to the game. Instead of wanting to blow my brains out, this gives me something new and fun to try. These mods are Pyromaniac Weapons by Mike Anthony, Hit Explosive by Hitman 47101, and Frisbee Mines by Bunslinger. Now, though these mods contain certain weapons that aren't explosive, I can still use the ones that are governed by the explosive perk. So, with all of that sorted, let's get back to it. After beginning, I instantly killed myself, and I considered quitting this run to going to do the energy weapons run that lost out on the last vote. But I didn't do that. I wound up in Goodsprings searching for my newly added weapons. Chet failed me. So I did what any smart man would do and went and visited my friends at Nellis. I then tested a frag mine and discovered that, yes, they are frisbees. I spoke to Mother Pearl and I started the Boomer quests. As always, first I had to see Bingawingle, and I played Pokemon TCG on my phone while he spoke. I then talked to Loyal to get the array quest and walked over there to find the location before going to Raquel to start ants misbehaving. I then spotted something peculiar. I then talked to Loyal, but was too stupid to get the sonar. F it, bombs it is. I never realized that there was a munition cache here, so I looted everything. And I got Thump Thump, a much better grenade launcher. God, I love this thing. After everything that could move was no longer doing that, I headed back to Raquel and completed this quest. I was then off to Helios 1, but even accepted by the NCR, I could still not enter. So, Hidden Valley Ranch time. I grabbed Veronica and I got my way inside, easy peasy. I spoke with Bitch Baby and got my quest. Then Nugget number 2 bothered me, so I ignored him. I eviscerated the family of centaurs and found Patrol 1. Also, I don't know if I said no followers or not, but Veronica's gonna stay for now. I then found the dead Patrol at the Boomers and found the rotting corpses of the other ones in RepCon. I then turned in all my goodies and it was time to find the scouts. Here's Uno, Dos, and Cuatro. Please, for the love of God, don't ask about Trace. They don't like talking about it. I then returned to the Elder and got the next fetch quest. You know the one where you have to repair the air filtration system? That one. So I took a break and did something I've never done. I helped the followers of the apocalypse. I know, fucking crazy, right? I found Jacob and I got him off his addiction. Turns out I killed Dixon earlier. Fucker needed 10 doses of Fixer. Bill was no fucking better. More Fixer and he wanted diluted whiskey. I then rolled on the floor a bit. What the hell is that? Hang on. I then rolled on the floor for a bit, deciding what to do. It was time for the Ghost Town gunfight. I found Drummer Boy and gathered the troops. Then we blew them all to smithereens. For a bunch of people called Powder Gangers, they didn't really use any bombs. I then traveled to Neil's shack, and it was time to end Tabitha's reign of terror. Veronica beat the brakes off this singular mutant. Fucking Christ, she wouldn't stop. He was begging for his life. Also, I bought a bazooka. I almost died going up Black Mountain. So, I fast traveled, robbed the Garretts of all of their belongings, and bought a fucking bazooka. It rocks. And let me tell you something about this bazooka. It's better than the damn missile launcher. I killed a ton of mutants, and it was time to deal with Tabitha. I also got Annabelle while I was up here, and that bitch died easy. I was then back to Freeside to use a science check to make Junkie 1 and Junkie 2 help themselves. Also, if you're suffering from addiction, please get help. Your family loves and needs you. You can and are capable of beating this. Remember, we lost a great man to addiction. After getting them help, I returned to Julie. Then grabbed Arcade to retry getting into the Enclave. I then robbed the Gamora to buy more weapons. It was at this time I decided to go back and find the source of the radiation in Hard Luck Blues. Ghouls littered the vault, and the close quarters made this really difficult to manage. Luckily, having Veronica and Arcade as meat shields made it a bit more manageable. I then became a ragdoll as my health bar glitched and went all the way to 0. I got really stuck at this part because the glowing ones heal off radiation and keep getting all of their health back. Finally, I resorted to the missile launcher. I then realized after killing all of them, I didn't have the password. Go figure. I found one terminal passcode and activated the pump station, clearing the vault of water. I then found the security password. Finally, we were able to open the Overseer's office. I then died. Finally, after way too many deaths to count, 34, I finished killing the Overseer and the many glowing ones. It was then time to destroy the reactors. With the reactor destroyed, I completed this quest. I then decided, F it, I'm getting bored again. It's the same in, same out every time I play. We're going to Zion. But before we go, it's time to do some crafting. I crafted one fat mine, 35 new grenades, and ammo to sell for some profit. After buying more medical supplies, I headed up to Northern Passage and began my journey. I spoke with Jed Masterson, and the goal was to find New Canaan. I had to drop weight like a boxer and hit 75 pounds, and after spreading out my inventory, we got moving. My friends, welcome to Honest Hearts, Explosive Edition. As we arrived in Zion, my entire caravan was eviscerated by the White Legs. After everyone was dead, I got to looting. Gonna be a long DLC without most of my gear. I then met Follows Chalk, who double tapped a White Leg. Anyone who doubles taps an enemy, I'm following. We trekked through Zion until we arrived at his camp. I also met two bears high-fiving. I then met the one and only Joshua Graham. The burned man had lived. A man baptized twice, once in water, the second in fire. It was here I learned that New Canaan was destroyed. The White Legs were the ones at fault. Joshua would be the one to get me home. But first the White Legs needed to die. Joshua didn't have any ammo for me, but supplied me with plenty of grenades and mines. And so began my scavenger hunt. First, I went and found the compass on the destroyed school bus. I was then killed by a mantis. After that, I was off to the fishing lodge, and inside were geckos, which died easy, and I grabbed the walkie-talkies. Finally, I headed to the general store and the ranger station. I sterilized the medical kit in the ranger station with alcohol, and found all the lunch boxes in the general store. With all my equipment, it was time to work with Daniel and the Sorrows. Daniel needed me to scout the roads and multiple locations. My first stop was the Morning Glory Caves, but not before talking to Joshua. Joshua did not wish to leave Zion. He wished to kill every last one of the White Legs. I then played Frisbee with a White Leg, but it was less Frisbee and more dodge mine. He lost. I then drank a fuck ton of water to conserve my stim packs. I then died to a Cazador and was back to square one. Man, I fucking hate this game. After another game of Frisbee, we made it to Morning Glory Cave. We killed the spore plants and found the stash key, and we entered. I got a resupply on grenades and fusion cells for more bombs, and found the Grand Staircase map. Next part of the plan was to wipe out some of the White Leg camps at Bighorn Bluff. I woke them up with a missile directly in their camp, and we were ambushed by the Yao Guai. Bro, what the fuck is this bullshit? This is actually fucking stupid. I died and waited till the morning, and same thing. After 2 more times, I killed that son of a bitch Yao Guai. The second camp died the same, in a fiery explosion. Next, we attacked the White Legs, planting traps at the bridge. I gooed a White Leg sapper. I then died again. Finally, I reached the bridge and began disarming traps. I then pulled out the problem solver to deal with the White Legs at the bridge. Worked like a charm. I then killed a bunch more White Legs and some mantises. I then entered the Yao Guai cave. Here, you have to plant explosives to bring the cave down. Alternative, you can also kill a bunch more Yao Guai, but with limited ammo, I decided to just plant the explosives for this run. It was time to return to Daniel. Upon arriving, Daniel informed me that it was time to leave, and I needed time to think. I found myself in Stonebone's cave. It was booby-trapped and took some time to get through, and at the end, I found more journal entries. Then, the armor. My mind was set. Zion was founded on survival. It would end in survival. I looted the remaining explosives and set off to find Daniel. I told Daniel of my plan to fight, and he was pretty disappointed. He told me that we had no right to kill the Whitelegs, to force the Sorrows to fight, and I told him he had no right to remove them from their land. I then met with Joshua, and it was time to exterminate. God be with us. To not waste ammo, I decided to swim to the Whitelegs' lair. This was to conserve the big stuff for the moment it really mattered. Joshua did most of the killing along the Virgin River. And finally, we reached the entrance. We were greeted by the dead horses. The extermination could now begin. We breezed through their forces, and the Whitelegs blew their canyon, blocking us. I found another way around, and killing these two Whitelegs took forever. And it was quiet on the other side of the cave. Dead horses and Sorrows were executing Whitelegs. I was ambushed and used my grenade launcher to finish them off. I then found Joshua and a frightened Salt Upon Wounds. He pleaded with me, wanting me to save him. I then spoke to Joshua. I had no objections to this. Joshua then executed Salt Upon Wounds, and we beat Honest Hearts with explosives only. But we're not done with this playthrough yet. It was back to gun runners to stock up on ammo. With enough missiles and grenades to take on a small army, it was time for the real challenge to begin. I restarted still in the dark and began to search each vault. South Vegas and Vault 3 was first. The Fiends stood no chance. The Fiend at the front of the vault did not like me being there. She told me to leave. I then blew her to bits. And so began the Vault 3 slaughter. The Fiends really like eating spleens apparently. I killed Daniel and got the maintenance key, and it was time to meet Motor Runner. I introduced him to a missile ending his life, and I then grabbed the reverse pulse cleaner and left. I then finally bought Esther and 2 Big Kid mini nukes. I then decided to start getting on Arcade's good side. We first went to Repcon, and then the Crash Vertibird, and let me tell you, missiles make all the difference here. I then went to speak with Thomas Hildern at Camp McCarran to earn more brownie points with Arcade. It was then time to see an old friend, but first, I went to see the boss man. Mr. House was pretty happy to see me, and wanted to know what I thought of his situation. But I wanted to get down to brass tacks, the business. He wanted the platinum chip. So, I ran him up for caps, and it was time to go see Benny. Benny wasn't happy to see me, and was willing to comp me the presidential suite. I took him on his offer and was ambushed by his guards. Benny had double-crossed me. This would be the last thing he ever did. It was time to head to Cottonwood Cove. Caesar had personally requested me. After a short boat ride, I met Big Bald F***. He wanted me to destroy the bunker at the fort, but I was employed with Mr. House. Upon entering the bunker, I spoke to Boss Man. It was time to get to work and upload the data and upgrade our security. Clearing the bunker was no issue with pulse grenades. Then, with the upgrade in place, Mr. House showered me in golden praise, and I left to report back at the 38. I then watched him do a presentation of the upgrades for the Securitrons. From there, it was back to helping the boomers, and finally, I was able to start that lucky old sun. I told Sparkles, grabbed all the solar panel parts, and then headed up to Helios 1's tower. Shit got crazy fast inside, but with some finesse, we handled it. After repairing the generator, I sent the power to Fremont and Westside. I was then blinded by the lights once more. I then scaled down the tower and got the last solar panel. With that quest completed, I repaired the array at Nellis and returned to Loyal. It was time to raise the bomber. You all know how this goes. Fast travel, swim, attach, raise, ta-da, bomber. Then I returned to Pearl and asked her to fight with me. She agreed, and I reported back to Mr. House. I was then sent to Gamora. Mr. House was concerned about their loyalty. It was cooperative silence that he was afraid of, and I was sent to find out what was going on. Pacino approached me and told me to stay out of the business. After stealing his journal, he was more than eager to talk for a few caps. I entered the lower Brimstone and found Troik. The skittish f*** needed me to break his contract. I lied to Sal's face and got the contract settled. Troik then gave me the thermite, and I destroyed the weapons. I then reported to Gacino, and it was time to kill the bosses. Gacino died, but so did the bosses. I then returned to Mr. House. It was now time to destroy the Brotherhood of Steel. Veronica was a good friend, so I sent her back to the 188, so she didn't have to see her family die. This was a simple extermination. Get the passwords to the nuclear reactor and blow it up. First was the Elders, after some trial and error. Then Paladin Hardens, and finally, the head scribe. I then generated the self-destruct password. With the password, I set the bunker to explode, then ran like hell. The Brotherhood had ended in a fiery explosion. I didn't feel bad for Veronica. This was just business. After reporting to House, I learned that Kimball would be visiting, but I needed to think. As we exited, Arcade approached me. Arcade informed me that he was a part of the Enclave, and he believed that they now had a chance to help rather than destroy. Thus began For Auld Lang Syne. It was first to Novak, where I met Daisy Whitman. the pilot, and she was instantly in. Next was Cannibal Johnson. He was also in. Then it was off to West Side to meet Judah Krieger. He was also in for one final hurrah. The second to last was located in Jacobstown. This walk was full of cazadors, mantises, and bighorners. I was greeted by Marcus and asked not to stare at the Night King. I then found and spoke with Dr. Henry. He was with us, but before he could help us, I needed to help him. I was off to Charleston Cave. I found a chewed-up stealth boy and returned to Dr. Henry to help with the Night King. I then asked Louis to help with the experiment. Keen then ran in, wanting the schematics. I refused to let him have them. I ended up killing most of the mutants in here. Then Dr. Henry was willing to come along. Finally, I met Orion Moreno. He was skeptical, but ready to go again. And it was time to head to the Remnant's bunker. But not before obliterating some mercenaries. Upon entering, I entered the code. Dear old friends, remember, Navarro. Inside, I met the Remnants and asked them to fight the Legion to help the NCR. Moreno was against this plan, grabbing his armor and Gatling laser. Moreno wanted a fight. In doing so, he had forfeited his life to me. After the fight, Judah then explained that I was now the rightful owner of Orion's armor. I then learned how to use it and donned the Remnant's power armor. Arcade then met me outside in his Tesla power armor. Then I returned to Mr. House. I had failed to keep in good graces with the NCR, and I could no longer protect Kimball. So instead, I was sent to the El Dorado substation. But first, I needed to make a stop. I traveled to the 188 trading post and laughed at Veronica. I then pissed her off and led her away from the post. I then sent Veronica to her family. I was then approached by a platoon that said I had 3 days to fix my reps. Bad move. Very bad move. I was then told not to go into the substation. I did it anyway, and I bugged it. I then returned to Mr. House. It was time. I was to install an override into the dam during the battle. The dam would be a cakewalk. I had enough firepower to wipe out both sides. Small Legion parties stood no chance. Neither did the Rangers. Inside the dam, I needed to find the control panel. I lied to the guards at the gate, telling them that Mommy Moore sent me to grab something. House took over with the flip of a switch, and the game changed. Outside, I was met by the Enclave, and we were greenlit for Phase 2. I strode into the Legate's camp in style. This was to be a slaughter. I didn't even speak to the Legate. This conversation was over long ago. After he lay dead at my feet, there was only one thing left to do. One loose end to wrap up. General Lee Oliver. After a long conversation, I told him to either fight or leave. He chose the latter. He chose to die. Mr. House then approached me. Our business was over, but I was not without a reward. I was to serve as his right hand, his enforcer of Vegas. And with that, I beat Fallout New Vegas with explosive weapons only. And this playthrough was so good, even Cannibal Johnson wanted to see my end credits.
Confused.